To pivot or not to pivot? That is not a question. That is a reality in time of COVID. And today our guest on Deeper Dives is Sharon Daster. There is no better example of someone who keeps pivoting in their career from one mountaintop to the next. During her career, Sharon has been one of 6 program directors at the world's biggest radio station, Z100 here in New York. She has also served as an SVP for iHeartMedia on the national platform. Sharon pivoted once again at Republic Records, where she worked with some of the top pop stars in the world. And then came COVID. As many of us, Sharon looked inside and realized she needed to pivot one more time, taking her personal brand from the corporate safety and security of an SVP position at a major company to flying solo as CEO of Daster Venture. Sharon, I'm so glad that you're here.
Me too. Oh my gosh, this has been so exciting to talk about, and now we're finally here. I have to be honest, the word pivot has been used a lot especially in the last year and a half, but because a lot of people have had to do that. A lot of companies have had to do that. We saw it with the restaurant industry. Think about early on with COVID, how they were obviously suffering probably more than some of any industry really. And they had to figure out a way to still deliver what they could to the consumer, whether it was creating new packaged meals that people could pick up or have delivered that a high-end restaurant wouldn't have done before, or all the outdoor seating. Think about, we thought it was maybe a temporary thing outside of the restaurant to,
it's like France.
To eat. Yeah, absolutely, and it takes you away to another place, and I think it draws more consumers in.
What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Absolutely.
For brands to survive, they can't become dinosaurs.
Exactly.
And in order to not become dinosaurs, when the ice age hits, they have to evolve.
Mm-hmm. They have to be already on to the next thing.
The best brands are ever changing, ever evolving.
Staying true to their core, but ever evolving, because obviously people come to that brand for certain things. And if you get too far away from that, that could also be the demise of a brand, because it's all about the brand expectation. I mean, quickly jumping back to the Z100 example, the reason when we got to Z100, the reason it was doing so poorly and was in 18th place was because the brand expectation of playing the biggest hits of all genres was not happening. They were just getting one style. They were getting alternative music, which was what was big on MTV, but wasn't part of the Z100 brand.
Brands staying on that, keeping that emotional connection and delivering what people expect and enhancing that in their pivots and their growth is the critical mass to survival. Making a left turn or a right turn so far removed from their message, like Coke Zero or countless other options we could come up with, can be the destruction of the brand, no?
Exactly. I think Netflix is another great example of pivoting and growing into something that is the future. When they first started with the DVDs that you would get in the mail, pre-packaged in the return envelope that you just put in, send back, more and more people were getting a little tired of that, and then they went away from that and went to the streaming service. Now, I can't even count how many streaming services there. I can't keep up with it, but that's what people noticed, that was the trend, and that everyone was going to Netflix. Now, there's so much great programming on so many of the streaming services, you have to, almost like it was with the networks, what streaming service is that on? Where can I see that?
Is there a brand that you could think of that impressed you as a consumer that also kept true to themselves, yet adapted for culture or the times or for the individual region they could have been operating in?
I think probably one that comes to mind is Tommy Hilfiger. You know, when he first came out with big logos and, oversized clothing. I mean, hip hop culture, once it starts in the US, it goes around the world and it just grows exponentially. And then once it grows overseas, then it moves on to something else. But that was enormous. Like, you could not walk down the street and not see a big Hilfiger logo across someone's chest or down a pant leg. But what was interesting was that those big colors and the big logos weren't necessarily that appealing to people in the UK. And the Hilfiger brand and company noticed that. They maybe did some market research and found out that they still want that sophisticated, preppy look, but not shouting the brands, not shouting the names. And they had to adjust to that and create some lines that were a little more sophisticated, a little more streamlined, not so big on the logo shouting. And then they had some success in the UK when, if they were just sending over what they were currently doing in the US, it just wasn't matching to the consumer. So again, it's understanding the consumer and understanding the differences around the world, because there are differences. A lot of trends can just explode all over, and some can just be territory.